pointed out a couple of things, though. One which I'm curious about, right, which is that people still like the community that you can create as part of a restaurant experience. And then people chose different kinds of experiences, right? Either casual or more upscale. Do you think that mix is going to change going forward? Will we see more of certain kinds of restaurants growing, others kind of doing things? I mean, how is each of those business models going to evolve?
Well, I think that, for a while, the middle was very full. And I think that there's going to be a separation between, that middle is going to shrink and the two ends are going to grow. So more takeout, of course, but also the opportunity for very high-end dining. Believe it or not, I do think that that is a segment that is going to, there may not be a lot of them, but I think that there can be people who succeeded it just like any other time. But I just think that that middle section is going to slim out a little bit.
Got it.
I'll add to what Ellen said, because I think it's a very good question, right? Because where everyone's thinking about what does the, what's the, post-pandemic era, what are tastes and preferences, and how have we changed as a society and as a consumer of hospitality? But I think Ellen's points are right on. I think in the luxury market, we're seeing that already. Like there's just some great outperformance at our luxury hotels, even though they're urban, right? And even though international hasn't come back and BT hasn't, so that means it's primarily leisure business that's driving our luxury performance at restaurants and the hotels. Now, Philadelphia's been a lagging market, so we haven't seen much here, but in markets where we've got a specialty experience like the Saltwood Kitchen and Oysterette in Monterey, or the rooftop, it's getting more traction. I think the differentiation in that large, what was I think pre-pandemic, a crowded space, as Ellen rightfully said. I think through this pandemic, what I'm gathering is that it was starting this way anyways, and we were all working towards that. I think experiences are important, but experiences are really the outcome of us connecting with our guests. And I think those hospitality operators that can connect with them, even if it's a carry away order, right? I think Tiffin does a great job of branding and making you feel part of the community, right? And I think that kind of stuff matters. I think in the in that mid segment, which is a pretty big space, I think there's plenty of opportunity to just, fight the tyranny of commoditization or, overly thematic execution and really be genuine, right? And create connection, because what people have missed most is, I think, a little bit of the freedom to self-indulge and the freedom to connect with people. And I think at least in the near term, that's going to be a big differentiator. I think we all do well to focus on that.
Well said.
Thank you for jumping in, Jay. And same note to our audience. Please feel free to just type in your questions in the chat, and I'll make sure to surface them during the discussion. You can feel free to do that anytime. You don't need to wait till the end of this. So given that, JNL, let me kind of move to David, right? I mean, David, given what you do, you tend to talk to a very large number of entrepreneurs, a very large number of people in the industry. Can you speak to perhaps some of the themes that you're seeing across these numbers of people that you're talking to, or any themes that you're seeing in terms of new restaurants and formats that might be in the pipeline?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it does vary by geography and type, right? So a wing stop in Texas or in Arizona with a drive-through, this is one of the best times they've ever had, right? That's very different than a fine dining restaurant in Midtown Manhattan. So it's really very, very broad. But I think, from a thematic point of view, Ellen sort of touched on something. It's one of the things that I've seen it actually like as a consumer, that when you go to the restaurant, the menus are short. And from a consumer point of view, that's great, because that the restaurant is doing and the chef is preparing the things that they like and they really want to make for you, as opposed to we have to have 20 things, 20 entrees because one person or two people might want that 20th one, and we kind of need to have that. So I think restaurants got smarter, and obviously it was survival mode of what are the things that we need to be doing and what are the things we don't need to be doing, because sometimes those things that you didn't need to be doing turn out to be really expensive, and you may not have had the capacity or the labor to do that. So I think that that's manifested itself in a lot of ways, and figuring out how to run your operation more like a business focused on generating profit. And there's always that balance between the art and the finance of it. But I think that's manifested, and I would be interesting to hear from the other panelists how they've incorporated the restaurant technology that's developed. But there's been a lot of technology that's developed, and it's been taken up by the operators because it allows them to run their businesses more efficiently, more effectively, have more visibility on where their costs are, where their profits are, where their inventory is. So we've seen a big boom in like the early stage restaurant tech world, because I think operators are saying we really, before the pandemic, this would be nice to have, but now we need to have this. We really need to run the business more efficiently. And I think the other big theme, and we kind of talked about this, before the panel started, that I think before the pandemic, there was not as much of an understanding or a focus on that customer relationship, right? Your customers came, however they came, they paid their bill, hopefully they came back again, but, really controlling that customer relationship and finding ways to engage with that customer, maybe in ways that you hadn't before, I think is really key. And Jay referenced that in terms of being part of that community. People want to feel like if they go to a restaurant on a regular basis, they're treated like a regular, and they sort of know they're part of that community. And this manifests itself in a lot of ways. And one of the big issues, and I know we're going to hear more about this, is with the delivery platforms. If a customer orders through Seamless, the restaurant doesn't know who that customer is, and they can't engage with them. It's not really their customer. But if that order comes directly to the restaurant's website, it is their customer. They have the data, and they can engage with them. They can follow up with them. They can send an email and say, or a text and say, hey, you haven't been in for a while. We'd love to have you come back. Here's a coupon, whatever the case may be. And I think consumers are more aware of it. I think most consumers didn't understand that before, and consumers started to order directly from the restaurant websites intentionally. But I think operators have become much more sensitive to owning that relationship and finding ways to engage with their customers that maybe went beyond what they had done before. And there were a lot of fine dining restaurants that in the pandemic had never done takeout and delivery before, but they found a way to serve those customers on those nights when they didn't want to, or they couldn't come into the restaurant, but they could still serve them in a different way. And so I think that's going to be a really important theme going forward.